All right, you ready? Merry Grinchmas, everybody! I am going to tell you guys a story of how I stole Christmas, or what I like to refer to as the Whoville Police Report. All right, you guys ready? All right, here we go. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But I, the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. I hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. Maybe it's because my shoes were too tight. Or maybe it's because my head wasn't screwed on just right. But I think the most likely reason of all was my heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, my heart or my shoes, I stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Who's, staring down from my cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm-lighted windows below in their town, for I knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, I said with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. And I, with my Grinch fingers nervously drumming, said I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, I knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early, and they'd rush for their toys, and then, oh, the noise, noise, noise. That's one thing I could not stand, was the noise, noise, noise. Then all the Who's, young and old, would gather round for a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something I could not stand in the least. Then they would do something I liked least of all. Every Who down at Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand hand in hand with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and those Who's would start singing. And they'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more that I thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more that I thought I must stop this whole thing. Why, for year after year I've put up with it now. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. But how? Then I got an idea. An awful idea. This Grinch got a wonderfully awful idea. I know just what I'll do. Then I left in my throat hat, and I made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And I chuckled and clucked. What a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I'll look just like Saint Nick. Now, all I need is a reindeer. I looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there were none to be found. Did that stop this old Grinch? No, I simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So I called my dog Max, and I took some red thread, and I tied a big horn to the top of his head. Then I loaded some bags and some empty old sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and then I hooked up old Max. And then I said, "Giddy up!" And the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. Now it was dusk. Quiet snow filled the air. All those Who's were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When I came to the first little house on the square. "This is stop number 1, this old Grinchy Claus hissed, and I climbed to the roof, empty bags in my fist. Then I slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. I got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then I stuck my head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, I said, are the first things to go. Then I slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and I took every present. Then I slunk to the icebox. I took the Who's feast. I took the Who pudding. I took their roast beast. I cleaned out their icebox as quick as a flash. Why, this Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then I shoved all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, I grinned, I will stuff up the tree. And I grabbed the tree, and I started to shove, when I heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. I turned around fast, and I saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou who was no more than 2. I had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who'd gotten out of bed for a cup of cold water. She looked at me and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking my Christmas tree? Why?" But you know that I was so clever and slick. I thought up a lie, and I thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," this fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light that won't light on this tree on one side. So I'm taking it back to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, and then I'll bring it back here." And my fib fooled the child, and I patted her head, and I got her a drink, and I sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, I went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. And the last thing I took was their log for their fire. Then I went up the chimney myself, the old liar. All I left on their walls were some hooks and some wires. And the one speck of food that I left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then I did the same thing to the other Who houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who mouses. Now it was 1:15. All the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when I packed up my sled, packed it up with the presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the trimmings, the trappings. 10,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, I rode with my load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-pooh to the Who's, I was graciously humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're waking up now, and I know just what they'll do. They'll open their mouths for a moment or two, and then all those Who's down in Whoville will all cry, "Boo-hoo!" That is a sound that I simply must hear. So I paused and put a hand to my ear. And I did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started out low, but then it started to grow. But this sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound was merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. I looked down from my mountain and popped my eyes. What I saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. I hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or another, it came just the same. And I, with my Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes of bags. And I puzzled and puzzled till my puzzler was sore. Then I thought of something I hadn't before. Maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. Well, what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that this Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And once my chest didn't feel quite so tight, I rode with the load through the bright morning light, and I gave back the presents and the food for the feast. And I myself the Grinch, carved the roast beast. The end. Do you like that story, folks? Awesome. Don't believe everything you hear, though, because my heart's really only this big. Merry Grinchmas!